Living was very hard. Migration kept growing. Everyone who had a chance left. And then, in 2010, TASO Foundation launched its activities in the community. Somehow, I hope to benefit economically from this endeavor. I mean monetary or other assets. This is why I joined in. At first, it was unclear what we were doing. I would never think we would be able to accomplish so much. I could not imagine that I would be able to do my household chores and to work doing something for my community. It was unimaginable. It gave us hope that we too could do things. Though we are in a conflict zone, and tomorrow may not be as sunny as today. Of course, people have heard of certain rights, but we have learned to speak up. So many email accounts have been created. We just love it. The way we are working now enables us to seek resources within our community and engage in local self-government and budgeting, in a way to be able to solve our community's problems locally. I just entered, took a seat and started to listen. And it was said that, although you are internally displaced persons, you can find enough inner strength, use your abilities. It was then, that very moment, that and I swear I am not exaggerating, that very moment, as I sat in that armchair, with springs protruding through the upholstery like sharp nails, that very moment changed me completely. I was 16, pregnant with my first child when my mother died. Unrest and the war broke out at that time. I was in my sophomore year at the Department of Foreign Languages, Sokhumi University. All my paperwork was burned. In 1994, my father died. I left the graves of my young parents and moved here. If I came across a book at someone's home, I would borrow it and read it at night. We had no electric power back then. Tamila Shalikashvili's book was published at that time, English for the Beginners, Parts 1 and 2. A young woman, a student in Zugdidi, somehow got a hold of this book. When I learned about it, I approached her and asked her to let me have it for 2 days, so I could hand copy this book. I hand copied the whole book and then I studied at night. I had no time to learn during the day. When I enrolled in university, I had 3 cows, including 2 dairy cows. I would get up at 7 in the morning, milk the cows, make cheese, and take it to Zugdidi to sell. And that would be my transport fare. Making and selling cheese saw me through the 3 years I spent in school. Something that would help these young people realize their knowledge, experience, and potential compelled me to put together my young pupils and those who wanted to learn English to create a youth study group. I had refugee children, and I still have entrants who cross the administrative border every other day, despite the serious problems they encounter. The students refer to this path as walking a tightrope. It is very dangerous. Some want to learn computer skills, others are into the English language, and I am talking about both women and children. There were no conditions in place for them to do it every day, so one of our needs was to open a computer center. This project works with IDP, conflict affected and ethnic minority women. The top priority of the project is to empower these women to ensure against gender inequality. The project works in a number of directions. The first direction involves women's engagement in policy setting, as part of which they define their priorities and needs on their own in order to reflect these needs in relevant legislation. The second level of the project is institutional, meaning that we cooperate with local self-government and local mechanisms to maintain continuous dialogue between community groups and authorities, so that programs, budgets and policies at the local level may be in line with the needs of people. And the third level under the project involves direct work with women, and this is where the role of TASO Foundation, our partner organization, is especially important. This organization works in the target villages on a daily basis, ensuring women's capacity building, training, learning and mentoring, followed by our small grant component, which seeks to promote and encourage their initiatives. The applicable method of social mobilization was introduced in Georgia and in our foundation in 2010, along with this project. By that time, we had already been aware of one urgent issue pertaining to us and to some extent to the women's movement, which involves the activation of our rural communities, meaning social and political activation and economic empowerment. In fact, seeking solutions is underlined here, implying making a difference in our own lives, in the lives of our families, neighbors, districts, villages, and ultimately our country. Why? Because, as one refugee woman wrote on the board during our training, we want a democracy in which we participate. We too have roles of our own. We enter in two directions. One is education, and the other involves grants. We seek to usher in greater knowledge, thinking. The only way to this end is to facilitate a modern library. Not only will it be a library, it will also serve as a center of education. We, the 7 members of our self-help group called Molaogli Development Group, seek to establish a community foundation, a building that will house a library and a meeting room to invite our fellow villagers and discuss our plans for the future. We are establishing a women's club to educate not only children but their mothers as well. We will have a small library, computers, children's books, and we want mothers to take these books home so that the mother, the father, and the child may sit together and enjoy reading, so that there may be equality in the family. We enter a given village as an organization, introduce its population to our method and works to be implemented, and offer them to establish a self-help group to carry out necessary activities to this end. In other words, the name itself, a self-help group, is very important. We have been told in several villages that the first thing people found attractive was this name, meaning that people are helping one another. A road 1.5 kilometers in length was gravelled in the village of Kordi, as well as other roads. 80% of the local population, or maybe even more, participated in this endeavor, including the elderly, children and women. Everyone volunteered and we helped one another using hoes, shovels and so on. The authorities also allocated a grader for 3 days to level the gravel. Similar to all of Georgia, waste management is a huge problem in our village as well. People used to dispose of trash as they please. Since the grader had already been in place and we finished leveling the gravel earlier, we took this opportunity to solve the landfill problem as well, to some extent of course. The problem is still there. All that trash is piled up there and we cannot conserve it on our own, but at least we collected it all in one place, so no waste is scattered all around us in the environment anymore. The gradual development of these groups is followed by grant giving, arrangement of office space, working space with internet, and so on and so forth, and others who have already benefited from the services provided by these groups join in. The implementation of this project and the creation of a center was timely indeed, as evidenced by the great numbers of beneficiaries and users. We have already provided computer services to 80 people, including socially vulnerable persons, IDPs and others. We maintain a project log to reflect all this. The group itself spares no effort to develop. We were settled in Skra in 2008, where we wound up building our lives from scratch. We are women working for equality, peace and development in the community. We volunteer to ensure the community's development and progress. We organize sports, poetry and other creative events. We also screen films on violence against women. We publish and disseminate a newspaper in our community. We participate in campaigns seeking to protect women's rights. We have many unemployed young people, young daughters-in-law and their husbands. There are many young women with little children, but there is no kindergarten. We established a group, Young Gulibachi Mothers. We decided to arrange a playground. In this endeavor, our husbands helped us. The project was commended by our self-government. We are working with preschool children, so it will be a place promoting preschool development. It is common knowledge that the budget is more than just a financial document calculating revenues and expenses, or just a bunch of digits. Among others, the budget perfectly reflects values. When a budget is gender responsive, it promotes democratic development, poverty elimination, women's empowerment, and so on. A gender blind budget, on the other hand, promotes gender inequality. The first phase of the project involves educational activities, trainings for self-help groups in local self-government issues, including local budgeting. Consequently, active members and leaders were identified within the self-help groups, who were capable and willing to work in this direction. This is how committees for cooperation with local government were created. Garbage would be taken out and dumped in the territories adjacent to the camp, and that is exactly the road where I live. The street would be filled with trash. The cleaning of those streets occurs only when someone from the central government visits. Surveys were conducted at least once a year to identify urgent needs and problems facing the community. Then, together with representatives of self-government, these problems would be shortlisted, followed by their presentation at municipal level roundtable meetings, in order to have these issues reflected in the local budget. The kindergarten is in terrible shape. No playground, nothing. This is how the kids sleep. We decided to help our fellow citizens. As a result, 23 people had their lands registered at the decision of the recognition committee. Of the 23, 15 are lone elderly persons. 6 houses on said lands were also registered. We also recorded numerous cases of domestic violence, when women were forced out of their homes. With our help, one woman received living space. She is a member of our group today. We turned to local self-government, and she was allocated a trailer. Then, again with our help, a house was built and registered for her. Today she leads an independent life. There are issues that we cannot handle, but there are others that we can and do solve. In 2010, the social mobilization project was launched, and I joined in as a community worker. It was the first time I had a special, diverse, and intense job. The first obstacle I encountered doing this job was that people were like, "You got nothing else to do or what? It's useless anyway." Yet, change was visible in mere 3 or 4 months. There was progress. Our meetings changed thematically. People started to link their domestic problems to the problems facing the whole community. If I tidy up my front yard, the mud outside will somehow enter my premises. It was a simple example showing that we had to tackle large-scale problems common to the whole community, which would benefit every household individually. The women realized that they and their husbands had to be equal in the family. They came to comprehend their rights. They saw clearly that it was not exclusively for men to have a say at village meetings. Women can also come forward and say what they have to say, no matter what others may think. They have to be up for it, so that other women who have yet to realize themselves may follow suit. Our organization often serves as a bridge between authorities and local populations. It is very important to communicate to decision makers the voices of these groups, which are the same as the voices of local populations. One of the most important outcomes of our project was the adoption of the National Action Plan on UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the engagement of non-governmental and community organizations in the adoption of said action plan, in which rural women play a very important role. The principle employed by us implied that very smart people from ministries and parliament may come together and form a working group, but they may not have enough experience to see those tiny and yet crucial details that absolutely must be taken into account in reality. And our project participants were the very generators of these tiny details. Admittedly, they took on this task with enthusiasm greater than I, for one, have ever encountered, because they came to believe that time had come when it was up to them to decide what would be legally adopted or implemented and what direction policy would take. We all have heard and experienced these disturbing stories. During wars, women suffer most because they lose loved ones and they are subjected to violence. Georgia emerged as the first country to adopt a national action plan on UNSCR 1325. That reflects recommendations provided by not only women's organizations, but also recommendations of people who have themselves been through forced migration, through war, through all this pain. What we want for them is peace, security, and the elimination of all forms of violence against women, and this is our goal. We were forced to flee the Kodori Gorge following the 2008 war. Now I live in the village of Tsintsaro, Tetritsaro municipality. Our village, which consists of about 600 households, is quite diverse ethnically and religiously, but we maintain good, friendly relations. At first, 2 self-help groups were put together. We implemented our first project in 2012. As of 2015, 8 self-help groups have been established in Tetritsaro. A member of one of these groups moved to the village of Iraga, where she established another self-help group, which has implemented 1 project so far, a kindergarten project financed by our foundation. 2015, we purchased a building for our community foundation, which houses our office and the community development center. Most importantly, all members of our self-help groups are volunteers. They are very committed and mobilized, and we enjoy working together, discussing and making decisions on all urgent issues together. We are like one big family, and each group is a member of our large family. The Egrisi Community Foundation has received 5 grants, succeeding in making a difference in the life of our community, improving social and infrastructural services, and raising awareness among people. We are also working on green spaces in the community and ensuring the involvement of young people. We implement small grant-giving activities. Similar to all of Georgia, our community faces the problem of child marriage. All senior girls in the Kogi school have dropped out. They all got married, so none of them has actually graduated. There are some real problems, like violence against women and so on. I believe the more men are involved in projects of this type, the fewer and easier to overcome problems will be. The attitude of the community toward our organization was manifested in the election. Two founders of the organization, both women, from different parties, ran for election.
The
project mainly seeks to activate young people and women to ensure their engagement in the country's development. This project is implemented in Mevrekisi, the villages of the Terzinisi community, the Skra IDP settlement, and Koshkebi, a village populated by Ossetians. The project focuses on the village of Koshkebi because no organization is operating there at this point. We are the first organization that plans to implement certain changes there, primarily working with young people and women. The community foundation is very important and necessary indeed. As we became more active, it became clear that we had to register as a foundation. On June 13, 2012, we registered as the NEPA Community Foundation. It so happened that IDPs were settled separately, in the middle of a field. This place is still called the IDPs neighborhood, so there is a lack of integration in the community. They are still isolated. There was a hole in the road, and it was quite dangerous. People would not let their children play outdoors. Though it was not as wide, it was 8 meters in depth, full of waste and rubble, and it was right in the middle of the IDP settlement. After we, together with the IDPs, raised this issue with local authorities, the place was cleared off the rubble and garbage, and the well was filled up. We decided to arrange a park in that place. The settlement residents were willing to work to this end free of charge. In the village, our organization has 3 children in a wheelchair under its wing. One of them did not have a wheelchair, so she could not go to school for a year. Under the project, we purchased a wheelchair and a modified desk to suit her needs. We also manufactured relevant furniture and built 3 wheelchair ramps at the front, back, and middle entrances of the school. We are trying to help these children and their parents, as well as the whole community, to understand that there are no limited abilities. All we have to do is ensure an environment for them to be independent. We were working in neighborhood communities when we discovered that the communities themselves were not aware of their own problems, nor did they know that the problems could be solved if they stuck together. They thought that someone else had to solve their problems, and the problem must be solved, but no one knows who exactly has to do it. These problems do not reach local self-government authorities because locals do not bring them up. Individually, everyone is ready. Wherever we go, the Gamgioba local self-government government bodies are willing to cooperate. The locals are ready for cooperation, but there is no communication between them. Now we are sort of lobbying. There are problems, but we facilitate contact between them and solutions start to appear. Our guests today are representatives of Zugdidi Municipality local self-government. We also have Natela Gagulia, senior expert for the Department of Education. When every entity works sufficiently, information exchange is in place. When someone is isolated at home, unemployed, it is hard for this person to socialize, to realize what is going on in the world. This is why we hold meetings or movie screenings, so that people may come out of shell and become involved. We should not wait for someone else to start. We should not question our ability to make a difference in this wide world. There are tabooed problems, but if someone comes forward and raises a problem of this kind, and if 2, 3, 5 people join in, then the problem will be surely solved.
Hari harali, 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 hari harali vada. Harali, hari harali, hari harali haralo, hari harali Gastiye haro gastiye Gastiye haro gastiye Satsaga tendevao Hari haraliya Yer dedas kadavek bebi Yer dedas kadavek bebi Mere shvil sadat solsao Hari harali Mere thomets gadmam khedevi Amertomets gadmam khedevi ertkhel ketilis tualita hari haraliya arulalo daralo torem kelamade Torem gelamde avivse Solshvili sodobralita Hari harali haralo Arulalo daralo Ahama